At St. Pete Saltworks, I think that we've created more than anything else an environment to remove the world for an hour. And that's what it's all about. I can provide a space where you can say, bye bye, world.
I won't be defined by your dreams, committed to my goals, yeah. Gotta do my own thing, keep up the hustling. I won't be defined by your dreams, committed to my goals, yeah. Gotta do my own thing.
Hi, welcome to Hustleburg. Thank you for sharing your time with us as we chat with entrepreneurs here in St. Petersburg, Florida. We talk about how they got started, how they built their business, and how they serve our community. I'm Brett Bittner, and I'm the host of Hustleburg, and I started Beyond Your Side Hustle because I found that most entrepreneurs lack the time and expertise to build their own digital marketing strategy and still get results. As an entrepreneur here in St. Pete myself, I love meeting and talking with fellow small business owners about what they do and sharing that conversation with you. Now, you may have noticed a few changes with the podcast lately. One of the biggest is that we're now doing video. So if you're only listening to this episode, whether it's on your favorite podcast player, radiostpete.com, or Sunshine 96.7 FM, please know that this episode and all future episodes are available for you to view on YouTube and beyondyoursidehustle.com. Just visit beyondyoursidehustle.com/YouTube to subscribe or to watch your favorite episode of Hustleburg. If you find anything of value in this episode, I encourage you to subscribe. And if you would, also rate and review the episode as well, because it sends us the right signals to know how the conversations add value for you. Finally, if you're interested in being a guest in an upcoming episode and you own a small business here in St. Pete, let us know by visiting beyondyoursidehustle.com/podcast guest. In this episode of Hustleburg, I have the opportunity to talk with Mark Anderson from St. Pete Saltworks. I'm somebody who absolutely loves floatation therapy. I found that it worked very well for me to help manage some stress and to reduce stress and help with some very deep relaxation. And I am so excited to have found that there is a floatation center here in St. Pete. And I really enjoyed the conversation that I had with Mark, both in our interview and outside of it, as we talked about how cool it is to float. Enjoy the episode. So, Mark, why floatation therapy?
Because we all need an adult timeout.
Okay. So what was it for you that you found when it came to floating and the saltworks and all of that? What was it there that kind of got you hooked? And why is it that's what you're passionate about?
Yeah, so I'd heard about floating almost 10 years ago, and that's, from a podcast, out of all things, Mr. Joe
Right.
Rogan. Joe Rogan introduced me to it.
Same
and,
here.
He put it in my head. I put it in my Blackberry. That's how long ago it was. I was like, I'm going to open a float center one day. And then life happens and all these different things. And at the time, I was in a place where I could listen to a lot of podcasts. And I kept seeing all these reasons and things that, were causing people to have a lot of stress. So I kept going back to floating as a way to really, how better way than to remove all the external inputs to give yourself that opportunity to process. So it's been a journey from that point on. A lot of life happened in between now and then, but it's been an exciting journey, and I'm happy to be here on the other side now.
That's awesome. Now, for those who are part of the Hustleburg community or are watching or listening that have no idea what we're talking about when we're talking about floating, tell us a little bit about what it is, what it does, and maybe some of the benefits that people can find when they do it. I mean, you and I have both done it. I'm a huge fan. I've definitely had some amazing experiences, but not everybody even knows what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of education, especially here in St. Petersburg, because it's such a new thing in this area. Well, flotation therapy has been around since the 1960s, and it had different names back then, one of which was sensory deprivation. So my goal is to kind of explain what that is and kind of take the scare back out of it again. A lot of people, when they think of sensory deprivation, it's kind of more of a scary than relaxing. So a lot of the same elements, or all of the same elements, go into what we're doing here. And between the 1960s and now, there's a lot of science-backed information about what happens in that environment. So it's been amazing for me to see what happens cognitively during float experiences, and how people are able to really relieve themselves and get themselves out of that fight or flight response. So one of the reasons we're here is because of its multiple benefits, and it's simply removing yourself from the environment. But a lot of very cool things happen in that removal. So, it's great for pain. We do a lot of work with the Rays and the Rowdies for sports recovery. So, and at the same time doing work with the VA for PTSD. So, it's amazing space to kind of give yourself an opportunity to just go back to a happy place.
So you and I both found it as a result of listening to the exact same podcast.
That's awesome.
I think I heard about it from a friend who listened, and then I tuned in to an episode of the Rogan podcast. So it's a big leap to go from floating to creating a float center. What was your motivation to create a business around it? What were some of the things you were doing before? Kind of how did it all come together for you?
Yeah, so like I said, 10 years ago, it kind of sparked a fire for me. And at the time, I was making maps. I was a geospatial analyst. So what that does is give me the opportunity to fill my head with all of these things as I make maps, because we're in a classified environment and just clicking away in a little cubicle. So, I saw a need for it, and I really just went deep into the float industry as a whole, and started myself with the Float Collective and all things float related and what it takes to do that. I don't have any, brick and mortar experience prior to opening a float center. So it's been quite the journey, to say the least, to go from that, note on a Blackberry to owning and designing also of St. Pete's first dedicated float center. So it's been an exciting journey, and I'm excited to be here moving forward and be here for our community. So, yep.
So when somebody visits St. Pete Salt Works and they're getting into the tank for the first time, what are they going to encounter? What is it going to be like for them? Is it cold? Is it hot? How do you float in the water? Is it dark? Is it light? I'm sure that people who've never done it have so many questions. I know that the very first time I did it, I was like, well, do I listen to music? Is it supposed to be quiet? How is this supposed to work? So kind of give us a real 101 on how somebody is going to float for the very first time.
Absolutely. So here at St. Pete Salt Works, I custom design these float rooms. So they're not a pod or a tank, what they're more traditionally used for this. I custom built these both because my mother and my wife were like, that sounds great, but I'm not going to get in a pod or a tank. So good luck with that. So we really made these have both sides of the spectrum covered, because we wanted to make sure they were float rooms, regular ceiling height. There's fiber optic lights up in the ceiling, and it's also a soundproof, lightproof space. So really at St. Pete Salt Works, we have 3 float rooms. Each room is your own private oasis. And in that room, there's everything that you need for your float. There's a shower, there's everything that you need to get ready for your float. And then there's a float room where the magic happens. There's a tank with 1,000 pounds of medical grade Epsom salt and 10 inches of water. So it's enough salt to hold you up effortlessly in a zero gravity environment. And you get all the benefits of the magnesium from the Epsom salt. So there's a kind of a trifecta there. And just that, without turning off the lights or any music, you're removing the touch of the sense of gravity and the sense of touch, because the water is also skin receptor neutral. So we're removing huge chunks of data from the world to your nervous system. And that's when you're able to already kind of settle down to a very restful, relaxed state. The lights inside there, you're in control of at all times. That's another aspect that we wanted to make sure the user is in control of. So there's lights up in the ceiling, there's lights under the water. Play with them as much as you want. But if you want to go what we call all in, get the full sensory experience, you turn off those lights and say, bye-bye world. And that's the kind of getting, the way I kind of approach it, especially to new people, because it's new to St. Petersburg, and we're introducing floating, people's first floats to a lot of people, is just say, it's your room for an hour. You can get out whenever you want. You go as far as you're comfortable with. And I always try to get people to that third float. That first one, it's going to be great. You're going to have, if you're able to settle down enough to get to that really, really neat space, it's going to be awesome. But by that third one, you kind of know what to expect. You can go a little deeper for a little longer. And that's when I start seeing people have those huge benefits where they're walking out saying, whoa, I needed that more than I thought I did.
Now, when I floated, I found it worked well to help me combat stress. It provided me with some amazingly deep relaxation that I've not found anywhere else. What are some of the benefits that you found both for yourself and with your clients when it comes to floating?
Yeah, so I float all the time. I built this because I wanted to be able to float all the time. So over the last 2 years, I've done a lot of experimenting, if you will. But yeah, like you mentioned, the type of relaxation you can get in there is next level. It really is. And there's science to prove what happens cognitively and to your operating system with that reduction of inputs from the environment. So we're really getting you down to that theta state, and that's really cool. And I can geek out on these different brain states and what happens in those. But in addition to that, I've gotten super creative in there. When you get to that theta state, the more comfortable you can get, the faster you can get there. I'll do some breath work. I'll do some, I'll just count backwards from 100 different techniques to kind of get you to settle down. Your body is going to settle down by itself, but that brain's going to keep going. So
right.
any techniques that you bring in there with you, it's going to kind of put it on training wheels. But it depends what you're going in there with. I'll go in there with a problem or a question, and I'll come out with more intuitive solutions to that I wouldn't have even thought of. So it's a really neat space to both get creative, to let go, to work through. Like I said, a place to process. I think that's my new way of kind of describing what happens in there. So it's different for everybody, but it's a great space, and I want to be here to help people along that way. If they're going in there for pain, for stress, for creativity, it's different things for different people.
Now, what's something that's special that you offer that sets you apart from anywhere else that they could float? Obviously, this is something that's kind of new to the area, but what is it specific about St. Pete Salt Works that people can say, okay, now I understand why this is different than if I were to do that somewhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, the custom rooms are a big thing that, I wanted to introduce floating to our community with. It's kind of a good trial run there. But at the same time, just being, I'm the owner operator. We have a part-time employee, but having those conversations after someone's float about what it was and what it wasn't, and making sure that they're as comfortable as they can be for that float. So, all my intros, I'm going in there, I'm explaining everything. We're talking about what it is and what it isn't. And kind of being that, that customer support that, I want to provide for a company that I'm responsible for. So being there through people's float experience, I've gained so many friends. I've had so many rewarding stories. So and cool partnerships too with this awesome town, this big old small town. So that's what it's all about.
Now, you mentioned partnerships. In addition to flotation therapy, you have a couple other related service businesses. Who are those partners, and how is it that they integrate with St. Pete Salt Works?
Yeah, so another reason why I opened a float center is because I saw how well it pairs with other things. So, floating by itself is great, but when you pair it with, for a massage, for example, we have Soli Therapeutic, which is an amazing massage therapist, group of therapists, and the flow massage combo is fantastic. But she's also, she has clients, and she's been doing therapeutic massages for a long time. So she understands what someone's massage is after a float and how relaxed they are. So it's really cool kind of seeing what that looks like.
Yeah, I've never thought about doing that. That would be an interesting combo.
Yeah, there's people here. I mean, that's like a 3-hour experience right there. Some people do a 1-hour float and then a 2-hour massage. Yeah, that's they come out a different person. But at the same time, you know, I love having that here for people. And then I'm really excited moving forward with something we're doing with being part of the research for the industry moving forward. So we're partnering with a company called My Brain Print, and hopefully we had to kind of put it on hold during last year, but we're going to reintroduce some form of kind of trackers for your float and kind of create some more programs. But we're always partnering with our local community here. Body Electric, if you're a member of Body Electric, you get to float with us at our member rate. So nice. We're all about it. So yeah, it's such a great community to work with and within. So it's fun.
Now, when it comes to building your business, what resources do you have at your disposal to help guide you? Are there any books or podcasts, video series, courses, business coach? What is it that's helping you to succeed?
Yeah, it's a you know, constantly learning and readdressing and moving the goalposts. But you know, to get me to where I am now, it's, you know, St. Pete also, you know, with the greenhouse, I've done a lot of work with them since I got started, and all the different things that they offer. They've been really helpful. You know, different books that got me to working in a cubicle making maps, that 9 to 5, to, you know, owning a float center. You know, some of those transformative books were like things like The Biology of Belief and The Power of Now. Some of these different things that kind of go from thinking to being, to kind of pulling the trigger on some of these, you know, passion driven things. So, you know, I'm here because it's something that I'm passionate about, and it's not easy to do. Those are my 3 salty children back there, and, you know, they need constant maintenance. But, you know, the community has been amazing to embrace kind of what we're doing here, and just offering this for my community has been really cool too. So, you know, I'm always learning from anyone that's done anything before me. I always outsource to the professionals. I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel, but I'll always reach out to you know, and learn. I'm always learning.
Now, listeners and viewers of Hustleburg know that I don't like to look at what other people describe as a failure. I look at it as a lesson, something that I'm learning. You know, it may be that I learned that you can't do something that way, but it will open a door to do it a different way. What's the most important lesson that you've learned thus far in operating St. Pete Saltworks?
Yeah, there's been a lot of lessons. And yeah, the lessons I use the same kind of terminology. You know, it makes, because especially when you look back at it, as I float all the time, obviously. So I sit there, and sometimes I look back at, you know, how did I get to floating in my own float tank, looking back at all the what got me here. And, you know, it's just kind of baby steps.
Sure.
So I kind of always look back at, you know, it's just constant kind of moving those goalposts. So there's not one thing, but a combination of everything. And when you look back at it, you kind of shortens what that looks like, and say, okay, all of that had to happen for me to get to where I am. So it's all the big unknowns in the void.
So how are you building your brand to make you the choice for those who are looking to relax, manage their stress, and some of the other things that floating can benefit us by doing? How is it that you're building that St. Pete Saltworks brand from an advertising marketing perspective?
Yeah, so you can tell how much I love St. Pete. I put it in my name, just like, you know,
right.
Hustleburg, you know, my last name should be Mark Hustleburg. But yeah, it's always outreach. It's always, you know, it's having those communications with my community, with the floats, but really, and the partnerships as well. So just always being out there in the community. We've had a couple new spots. We have a couple more on the way out pretty soon. So I'm just always reaching out. and inviting people to come check it out. I'm an open book anytime. Just give, St. Pete Saltworks a call. I'm almost always here and love talking to people and making stuff happen. So, and with this going so well with so many different things and so new, I can both educate and connect people. So that's what it's all about.
Now, in your wildest dreams, where is it that you want to take St. Pete Saltworks, and what are you doing to get you there?
Yeah, so I'm excited about some programs. So, I've floated thousands of people in the 2 years that we've been open here, and it's been great. It's been super rewarding. But as I move forward, I want to we are going to create some programs to wrap around the float experience. Okay. If it's some primers to get you prepared for a good quality float, or if it's, weekly floats to kind of work through something. So you have something at the end of that program to say, okay, I created some change and just kind of be a guide for people's float journey, if you will. So, I'm excited about doing that. My goal is to be open 24/7 availability and work with our shift workers at the hospitals. We're right across the street from St. Anthony's. And work with our first responders and anyone that's in those really high stress jobs, and even shift work. I've done a lot of shift work myself, so I understand how hard it is to turn it off at the end of a weird shift, because your brain's trying to to wrap its head around what's going on there. So it's a great space to kind of make that transition from that work to regular life work. So being here for our community at all capacities, I'm excited about, and also being part of the research for the industry as well. So that's some other stuff we're excited about adding here pretty soon.
Now, Mark, are you a St. Pete native?
I've been here long enough to be considered one of these.
Okay.
I'm originally from Chicago. My wife and I both went to St. Pete High. We've been together since high school. So I've been here since the mid '80s. So yeah, I'm pretty much one of these St. Petersburgers.
Got it. Now, when you aren't working, what are some of your favorite things to do in and around town?
Yeah, so I love the water. I love St. Pete and everything it has to offer. Another program I'm excited about offering is something called The Blue Mind, which is a great book, and how it really eloquently talks about how being on, in, or near the water has a genetic response to your body. So I spend a lot of time on the water. We live on the water. I do a lot of outdoor stuff. So all of Florida, we spend a lot of time on the rivers and the lakes and all around. So just being outdoors and enjoying this beautiful city.
Now, what are some of your favorite local businesses that you like to support?
Yeah, we're right next to our block. I couldn't have created a better float center block in St. Pete. So, we're right next to Gypsy Soul's Coffee House. They're awesome. Okay. And, my wife's and I's favorite restaurant is the Beer Boutique right around the corner from us as well. But we hit them all. We've been on Localtopia ever since before we were even open. So we're big supporters of all things local. My wife's family also had a local business here growing up. So, we're all about it.
Now, is there anything that you have upcoming in the second or third quarter here in 2021 that you want to make sure that viewers and listeners put on their calendars? It could be a special that you have upcoming, or just something that that you're going to be involved with that you want to make sure that they know about as well.
Yeah, so many different things coming down the pipe. So if you're interested in anything float related, hop on our email list, or just give me a shout or stop by for a tour. A lot of people go grab a coffee at Gypsy and stop by for a tour. I love showing people around, and stick around for some of these different programs that we're offering. I'm excited to just kind of be the float facilitator for St. Pete. So nothing in specific, but just stop by anytime.
All right. So how can we connect with you? Where's the best place to do that? Give us your website, where you are on social media, and how people can connect to make sure they know everything that's happening with St. Pete Saltworks.
Absolutely. So, we're pretty active on Facebook and Instagram, St. Pete Saltworks, stpetesaltworks.com if you want to book a float or find some cool information about floating. And there's a cool gallery. You can see some of what our space looks like. And yeah, those are the spots.
Awesome. Mark, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us kind of what's happening in a business that not a lot of people necessarily know about. It's something that I have had experience with and absolutely have loved. And I'm so glad to have found out that there is a float center here in St. Pete.
Absolutely. Yeah. Looking forward to having you in too. You have to come float through it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mark. Have a great day.
You as well. Thanks, man.
Hey, you did it. You've just listened to Hustleburg. Hustleburg is produced by Beyond Your Side Hustle, where we help you craft an awesome strategy for your business and build a community that supports you today and in the future. We help budding entrepreneurs go beyond their side hustle and into the business they're dreaming of. If we provided you with something valuable with this podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast player, especially you Apple Podcast listeners. This is something that only takes a few seconds that will help us shine the spotlight on all the great businesses St. Pete has to offer and grow our community. Speaking of great businesses here in St. Pete, if you're a small business owner here and you'd like to share the story of your business with the Hustleburg community, please let us know by visiting beyondyoursidehustle.com/podcast guest. Did you know that at Beyond Your Side Hustle, we're helping small business owners reach ideal engagement on any social media platform with a free 3-week training by email? It's available for you at beyondyoursidehustle.com/3 weeks. You can also find a link for it in the show notes. Start right now to learn how you can fix your feed to serve you, start engaging on social the right way, and create a community around you and your business. The opening music in this episode is Defining Your Dreams by my friend Rhymer Educator. I encourage you to check him out on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you listen to great music. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to sharing with you how we do business in the Burg.